So welcome to this MindOut and Silver Pride Advocacy Network webinar titled Social Connectedness for the LGBTIQ+ communities during the holidays. My name is Jen Waltman and my pronouns are she, her. I'm the Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Lead here at LGBTQI+ Health Australia, and I look after the MindOut program. Thanks for joining us today. Before we begin, I'd like to share an acknowledgement of country. I'm lucky to be on Gadigal and Bidjigal country today, which is the land of the Eora Nation. I pay my respect to all of the traditional custodians of the land I'm on today and the land that you're on today. As an organization with national reach, I extend my respect to all First Nations people across Australia and pay respect to the elders both past and present, and extend that respect to other Indigenous people present, as well as their connections to land, sea, and community. Please feel free to use the chat function to share where you are joining from today. I'd also like to acknowledge everyone here today with a lived or living experience of mental health challenges and/or suicide. I'm someone with lived and living experience of mental health challenges and suicide, and I recognize your experiences of pain, grief, challenges, and loss, and understand that ill mental health and suicide can and does reach far across our communities. And I also recognize the unique insights that people with lived and living experience carry and the strength that we possess. And I thank the advocates who have come before us, who raised their voices to support community, especially when it was unsafe to do so. Our unique perspective shines a light on how together we can make things better for everyone. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Our webinar today is being recorded and will be made available on the LGBTQI+ website, Health Australia website. So if you miss any information, you will be able to go back and listen. For questions, we invite you to use the Q&A function, which should be located at the bottom of your screen. We'll aim to get to all questions that we have time for today at the end of the presentations. Today's webinar will include evidence around the benefits of social connectedness, as well as ways to stay connected, and we're sharing them as things for you to consider over the holiday period. The holidays, including Christmas, can be a very difficult time for some LGBTQI+ people. Absorbing this type of information and hearing people's stories may be difficult for some. So if today's webinar brings up any issues for you, please know that support is available, like QLife, which provides Australia-wide anonymous support for LGBTQI+ community. QLife services are free and can be accessed via qlife.org.au. There are also other helplines available on that support page. So today we're lucky enough to be joined by three guest speakers: Ketty Crystal from GLBTI Rights in Aging, Gary White, and Julia Gelgen. Both Gary and Julia are from the Silver Pride Advocacy Network Living Experience Advocacy panel. Before we begin, I'd like to provide a bit of context about today's presentations. All three presenters draw on their experiences either working with LGBTI older people or their living experience as LGBTI older people. They will be discussing the importance of social connection for LGBTI older people, as we know that LGBTI older people are more likely to experience social isolation and loneliness. Ketty will discuss this as part of her presentation. Social isolation and loneliness are associated with health issues such as heart disease, stroke, sleep problems, poor immune function, and the development of dementia. However, social connectedness is a protective factor. It's widely acknowledged to be a fundamental human need linked to higher well-being, safety, resilience, and prosperity, and to a longer lifespan. There is also evidence linking social connection to some mental health outcomes, particularly depression. So to kick things off, I'd like to introduce Ketty Crystal, who is the Executive Officer for GLBTI Rights in Aging. GRAY is a not-for-profit, community-based organization working to ensure that older GLBTI people are safe and respected. Previously, Keddy worked in the field of domestic and family violence from 1983 to 2016. Keddy became a Justice of the Peace in 1999 and is currently a director on the board of Tender Funerals WA, a committee member on the Women's Hall of Fame board, a member of the Sexual Health Quarter's LGBTIQ advisory group, and the City of Perth LGBTIQA+ advisory group. Welcome, Keddy.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Good morning to everyone who's here. Can I have the next slide, please? So I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you today from the lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people in Western Australia and pay my respects to our elders past and present. Next slide. So I'm going to talk very briefly about a piece of research that Gray did in 2023. We surveyed 220 LGBTI older people, 50 plus years in Western Australia. So this was a new piece of research in Western Australia. And the survey provided a snapshot of the physical, emotional and mental health, financial well-being, housing security, loneliness and social connections of older LGBTI people in WA. We also asked questions to identify the types of social activities older LGBTI people were interested in engaging with and what was a barrier to engaging in social activities. I don't have the time today to present all the findings from this piece of research, but the full report is on our website if you want to have a look at it. So it's called Loneliness and Quality of Life Under the Rainbow. Next slide. So I'm just going to focus on the data about loneliness because we know loneliness is associated with the risk of developing coronary heart disease and stroke. Lacking social connections is as damaging to our health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And we know from general research into this issue that approximately 53% of older LGBTIQA+ people in Australia feel isolated from others some of the time or often. So the ages in our survey of the 220 people, so that was the age range from 50 right through to 84. Next slide. And what we found when we asked the questions around loneliness and social connection, and this was a surprise to us, one of the unexpected outcomes of the survey, was that people in the 50 to 64 age group tended to be lonelier, with 82% experiencing moderate to high levels of loneliness. And that group was more lonely than the older age group of 65 to 84 years, which we weren't expecting when we did this piece of research. Next slide. When we asked people about what they would like to do in terms of social activities, the majority of people preferred intergenerational or mixed age group activities, and then only a quarter of the respondents wanted seniors only activities. So people were generally quite keen to mix with a broad range of age groups, as long as we were mixing mostly with our own LGBTI community. So one of the things that came out of this to some extent, next slide, was the West Australian State Seniors Strategy funded Gray to develop a 12-month project called Our Voices Have Changed the World, Reflections from Older LGBTI People. So this was part of the state's senior strategy, and it captured the stories of 16 older LGBTI people. So what we did was put out a call out to the community for younger LGBTIQA+ people and to be interviewers, and older LGBTI people to share their stories. And then we matched them, and they met together 2 or 3 times, and the interviewer captured the story, and then it was transcribed and put together into the the book. And then we took a series of photos of all the participants and had a big launch and a celebration. One of the reasons the Department of Communities here funded this project with us is because they saw this as a resource that could be used in aged care centres and aged care residential facilities to start conversations, as well as to educate the wider community about the experiences of growing up an LGBTI person at times where it has been extremely difficult to be who you are. So I just wanted to show you on the next slide, if you can play the next slide, some of the people who took part in this project.
My main reason for taking part was my belief that our lives reflect the time we're born in. And I was coming out in the era of gay liberation from the 80s onwards. And so the reason I've got involved in the project is that my life touched on the gay liberation story. And so I wanted the gay liberation story to be told, more than my own story.
I feel the benefits for others in reading my story is that they might get a glimpse of what being a transgender woman is really like. I found transitioning was the most difficult experience of my life. It was frightening, it was stressful, it was expensive, and I don't think people understand that. It also wasn't a choice. People tell me that they think I should be proud that I decided, and it's like, I didn't decide.
And I feel like I've had a lot of experience in life, and I feel like it's going nowhere, it's kind of wasted. As I see young people struggle through life, I thought maybe principles, things that I've gone through may translate into modern day for them, and especially about survival and about being strong and believing in yourself and just getting through day after day. So I think it was that I wanted to bring to this particular project. And you've got a captive audience, because if they're going to pick it up and read it, that means they're invested. So you can tell your story and hope that they can read something out of it and take something through life with them.
I've done it quite a bit. I've just tried to talk to younger people and that about, I give a bit of a kick out of that, I guess, trying to educate them about what we went through in our younger days and that, the 70s and 80s. And
hopefully the benefits for others reading my story is to see how universal our struggles have been and how different generations have dealt with those issues. So I was happy to lend my experiences and compare them with what's going on in the community today.
I've got time to do this last project. So one of the other projects we've done that has an intergenerational focus is our Pride Housing project, which pairs older LGBTI people with a spare room with LGBTIQA plus students looking for accommodation. If you go to the next slide, please. And so the idea with this project is to meet the two needs, the needs for younger students looking for accommodation, but also the needs for older people to be able to age in place in their home, and also to break down those barriers of social isolation. So this was an opportunity, this was funded by Lottery West here in WA, to connect people of two different generations apart together for the mutual benefit of both of them. And this information is on our website, and there's also Our Voices book is also on the website if people want to download that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Teddy. Thank you so much for that insightful presentation. Next, I'd like to introduce Gary White. Gary identifies as a person with a disability as well as a gay male. He has held a range of professional roles throughout his career. This includes positions as an educator, disability consultant for TAFE New South Wales, small business owner, and manager CEO of HAAC Services. He has also served as course coordinator at the Aboriginal Centre for Performing Arts and as project manager for a local palliative care consortium. In addition, Gary has personal experience as a carer for his late husband. Gary is a member of the Advisory Committee for the Silver Pride Advocacy Network. He's an active member of the LGBTQIA+ reference group for the HAAG Housing for the Aged Action Group and the Committee of Management for HAAG. Gary is also a board member with the Southeast Housing Rental Cooperative, and he's a member of our advisory committee for the Independent Rainbow Voices. Over to you, Gary.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. I wanted to start off with on the importance of the good old social group. I'm a member of two of these social groups. One is called Bent Twigs, which basically meets once a fortnight and is sponsored here in Melbourne by Yarra Council. Bent Twigs has been running for approximately 8 years now, and over the last 12 to 18 months, the numbers of the core group has grown from about 8 to 9 to about 19 to 20 people. Calling them a social group, I think, is a little bit nearsighted, because these groups are actually support groups. To actually get together, meet with our peers, and to be accepted as part of the community that we are in is absolutely invaluable. I found last year, after my husband died, I realised that I was a lot more socially isolated than I realised I was. Yes, my husband isolated himself, and in terms of being his carer, that also meant I become isolated. After his death, I realised that I had to go and refine my community. Community to me is important. It is part of my identity, and it is a part of my well-being. But not only did I have to go and find community, I was in the situation that after 47 years, I also had to come to terms with, who am I now as a single person? Bent Twigs was where I turned to, and Bent Twigs gave me back my voice and my ability to participate in community. It assisted me in finding out and realising who I am now and who do I want to be and what are my goals for the rest of my life. Another group that I'm involved with is fairly new. It's only met 3 times. And this is a collaboration between the Pride Centre here in Victoria and LifeView. For those who don't know who LifeView is a aged care residential provider who at the moment is in the process of constructing an LGBTQIA+ only residential care facility in Paran here in Victoria. As part of the work they were doing with our community before they started this, they realised that older LGBTQIA+ people had difficulty in accessing the My Aged Care system because they didn't really know how or where or how to actually get into it or how it operates. So in conjunction with the Pride Centre, they decided to set up an over 50 social group so that there's at least a whole group of people who can actually get together and share experiences. Part of the social group organisation thing is it is a group of people with wide experiences and lived and living experiences. And that is how we support everybody else that's there. These are 2 groups are basically for over 50s. I also believe there's a real importance for intergenerational support and intergenerational inclusion and acceptance. Part of the work that I'm doing in Hague with the LGBTQI plus reference group, spearheaded by Liz, and I'm going to get Liz's name wrong, so I won't give her a full name, Liz myself, is that this year we are actually looking at developing a project that will actually encompass and form an LGBTQIA plus intergenerational housing program where people from cross-generationals can form community, and from that community we can all grow and support each other. This is really exciting stuff because at the moment there's no real thing as a generated community for us. Connectedness is important. And the other thing that I really, really, really need to stress is that we don't have social groups. If we're not active in our community, we become invisible. If we are invisible, we become ignored. And if we become ignored, what are we? Nothing less than an elf on a shelf. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Gary, for sharing. And last but definitely not least, we'll hear from Julia. Julia is a member of the LGBTQI plus Health Australia's Silver Pride Advocacy Network. She's been a volunteer visitor with the Queensland Council for LGBTI Health's Aged Care Volunteer Visitors Scheme for over 12 years. In that role, she has visited many older LGBTIQ plus people with dementia, as well as lived experience with close family members. She is also currently an LEAG member of the National Dementia Guidelines Updating Development Team and a co-researcher with the Rainbow Inclusive Aged Care Project. Julia, can you please share with us about the choir you sing in?
Thank you, everyone. I think my talk will encompass some of the points that both Katie and Gary raised about intergenerational isolation and loneliness for older people, and also mixed age activities. I'm Julia Galjon. My pronouns are she, her. I'm an older lesbian living in Redland Bay, Queensland, with my wife. For me, social connections have always been an important part of my life. And some people find this very difficult. I've found it relatively easy for me, but I have visited people in aged care who have found it impossible. And therefore, the community visitor is the only person that they see in their older years. One of the ways I've been able to connect with others is through singing in choirs. I even met my wife in a choir almost 30 years ago, in a conventional choir. And I've sung in many different choirs, but over the last 13 years, I've had the joy of singing with my own chosen family in the Brisbane Pride Choir. And the choir's stated purpose is to provide opportunities for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer, and allied people to experience the joy and fun of singing together. In so doing, we're afforded opportunities to address discrimination and disadvantages of the LGBTIQ plus communities by providing a social context for the full diversity of queer people to join together to perform and socialise. Through our performances, we share with audiences the great value of a diverse and accepting society, often connecting at events in Brisbane and throughout Queensland with people struggling with their own sexuality and their identity. This is a stated purpose of the choir, and I think they do it very, very well. We sing at libraries, we sing in aged care homes, we sing at World AIDS Day, Ida Hobbit Day, We have concert, we've sung at funerals that have been requested to sing at, including one for a deaf person, which was a very different experience because we didn't know sign language and most of them couldn't hear properly. And also for some of our own members who have passed. So this mission statement is demonstrated in all its glory as recently as last Saturday night at our Timeless concert, where 60 members plus guest artists sang their hearts out about love, chosen family, belonging, and connections for people of all ages. Can I ask you to show a short video of the choir rehearsing for Reconciliation Day, the reconciliation song of this year, which was Solid Rock.
Great way to stay connected. And
it is, and as you can see, there's plenty of grey hairs, there's plenty of younger people, and there's plenty in between. And this is just such a wonderful mix. The choir started in 1998 by a small group of LGBTI people who wanted to sing protest songs for our community and for First Nations people. And they started doing that but over 27 years later, the choir has grown to over 80 members, and it's now a vibrant choir family belonging to the full rainbow, including allies, and we even have some parents who bring their children along, their younger children who haven't got a driving license yet. Our youngest member is about 17. And we have several members over 80, including myself. So we've got the full age range. And everyone who wants to sing with us is welcome, regardless of abilities, as there are no auditions, which often puts people off. We don't ask any questions. You can turn up for 3 free rehearsals beginning of each semester. Just give us your name. How do you want to be addressed? Dress as you like, and people do, and they dress differently from week to week, some people, and it's actually a wonderful mix. This makes a very safe space where everyone can be who they are or who they want to be. And as I said, many people come looking quite different each week, and you think, is that the same person? Because one week they might be wearing a dress, the next week they'll be have no hair, then sometimes they'll be grow hair again. It's just amazing. There's lots of support for those transitioning and going through trauma from family members which we have some people of, and they're happy to share it because some people who are transitioning, and they reach out to some of the older members who already have. And as you would be aware, there's still a lot of discrimination from families towards younger people who want to transition, and they feel very isolated and lonely, but they find a home with us. Recently, last year, a member of the choir died suddenly through not a mental health issue, through a medical health issue. And some of the younger members were very, very traumatized because they had never had anything to do with anyone dying close to them. But again, some of the older members were able to support them. They supported each other. They actually reached out to the family. We sang at the person's funeral. The family have now provided a scholarship for some singers who maybe can't pay the fees. And so there's this wonderful connection in the wider community through singing. And while a choir has to have a formal structure to function effectively, it also has a large informal component. We have a members-only Facebook page where people can connect with each other. They have people organise social outings amongst themselves, for instance, karaoke night, a monthly karaoke night, which is well attended. We have trivia nights to raise funds. We have raffles at concerts. We go to international and national choral events, and some people have never done anything like that, and we fundraise for them. And the last one we went to at World Pride in Sydney, we raised enough funds to take 40 members and pay their fares and accommodation, which was really wonderful. Our 2-hour rehearsals are every week, and they're a really important break for socialising and making connections. And you see friendships being formed between people, also between younger and older people. And some of the younger people will come and talk and tell you about some of the things that are happening in their life. But it's all done in a very informal way, in that there's no pressure. And a cup of tea and shared food is absolutely wonderful for that. For me, the value of a choir that thinks of itself as a family is immeasurable in our community. As coming to rehearsals to a choir like this is like having a family gathering once a week without the pressure and expectations that can be part of being a family. And I really love the fact that it's mixed age, because as I'm older, I don't move the chairs. I just say, you move the chairs for me. And I'll do all sorts of other things. And they respect older people, but there's not too much ageism going on. And also we respect the younger people because they have different experiences to us, and they have a different life view. And in many ways, their life is more difficult. I know we've had the discrimination and all of those, but we've sort of got through that as older people. And I would advise anyone to think of joining a choir wherever you are, the joy that it can give into your life. I'm open to questions after this.
Thanks so much, Julia. Again, a great way to stay connected. And I really love the idea of the intergenerational connections that are being made in your choir. I think that's really important. So
it's very important that we have them.
And you sound great. I think you guys sound great. So that was amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks again to everybody, to Ketty and Gary as well, for your presentations and your insights. So we've got some time for some questions, probably about 20 minutes or so. I believe that Rachel from LGBTQI+ Health Australia has been watching the chat. I'm just going to stop sharing so that I can see everyone and take a look at the chat to see if we have some questions or in the Q&A. I'm just going to start with Q&A. Thanks for the sound issues. Technology is really fun. I'm going to go to the chat now and see if we have any questions there. Give me 1 second. And thanks for the links as well, Joe, and I think some of our panelists put some links in, and feel free, Gary and Julia and Ketty, if you have any more links that you can put in the chat as we go along with questions, that would be great. I'll do my best to also compile some links if people want to get in touch, or go to the choir, for example. We'll provide some links post-conference. We've got a question here. We've got a lot of really great comments about the connections that you're making and the work that you're doing. Thank you for your amazing presentations and sharing. And then we do have a question, and it's from Claudia. And it says, could Gray talk more about how they set up the housing project and how they manage it? So that's over to you, Ketty.
Okay, so the housing project came out of another project called the LGBTI Village Hub, which was a federally funded project under the previous federal government, under the Seniors Connected funding program. And we were fortunate to get some funding to set up so they set up 12 village hubs. They funded 12 village hubs across Australia, and we were fortunate to get some funding to do an LGBTIQA plus village hub. And part of that village hub, because it didn't have a physical setting, because we're a very small organisation, one of the things we set up was a befrienders program, and that was peer-to-peer, so older LGBTI people volunteering to be matched with another more isolated older LGBTI person. And coming out of that program, we realised that we were working with a group of older LGBTI people, and many of them were living singly in a house, whether that was the house that they owned themselves or whether it was a rental property. But they had spare rooms in their house and they were living alone. And out of that came the idea, it's not a new idea, it's been done in various formats for many years, of matching an older person and a younger person into accommodation. So we were fortunate to get 18 months of funding from Lottery West that enabled us to employ a coordinator 1 day a week. And we set up a reference group here, which had people from ECU, which is Edith Cowan University, who did the evaluation. And that evaluation is not public yet, but it's in its final stages. So there'll be an evaluation of the project available. But we also had someone from one of the community legal centres. We had someone from the Department of Communities. We had people from nearly all the other universities that were on the reference group. And so the reference group was an extremely well-resourced in terms of their expertise and knowledge in this area, and well-connected. And they really guided the project in a huge way. And so the coordinator set up all the policy and the reporting and the connections, and worked really hard. I mean, and we promoted this project extremely widely, and including right out to the gerontology conference in the UK last year. And so there's always been a lot of interest in it and a lot of enthusiasm for it. The actual groundwork, we had a lot of trouble actually connecting people. So we would have older people potentially who had a room, who were keen, but they didn't live near a university. And so the travel distance and the location were problematic for a young university student. And one of the targets for this project was the international students, so students coming into Australia to study, possibly from countries where homosexuality attitudes and community is somewhat lacking. And so we were very focused, really wanted to support those students as well. So at the end of the day, we had about 20 students apply, and we had about 8 or 9 older people offer a room. We weren't able to match a lot of them because we were matching very selectively around gender identity and sexuality and location, a whole range of factors like that. So a lot of that will come through the evaluation report. And so where we are now is that the funding has finished. So unfortunately, our coordinator has moved on to another job, which is very sad. What Grey is still really committed to the idea of this, and what we are now looking for is additional funding to actually set up a website so that we can do a lot of the matching and the promotion online. And we've also widening the scope. So instead of just working with university students, we will work with anybody over 18 who's in the LGBTIQ plus community who's looking for housing, because we think that will give us a better pool of housing applicants. And so that project now is seeking more funding to enable it to continue, but Grey is quite dedicated to keeping this idea afloat and continuing to promote it and explore what ways in which we can make it safe and easier for an older person to advertise that they've got a room, because we still want to make sure that we're not putting anybody at risk and that we're really supporting any matches we make. And then make it easier also for people looking for accommodation to find that and to be supported and matched appropriately. So that's where we're at with that project at the moment.
Thanks so much, Ketty. There's another question from Joe, and that is, does the panel have any suggestions for getting through the holiday period? That's a big question. So does anyone want to take that?
For me, it would be, no matter where you live, if you can, talk to your neighbours, talk to people in places where you go, say hello, even if it's hard, and you will be surprised how many people respond positively. But I do also understand that when you're feeling lonely and depressed, that can be a very hard thing to do. And I would suggest that if you know people that you suspect are lonely and you live somewhere near them, just make an effort and go and say hello to them and take them a few flowers or something, or just knock on their door and say, oh, I've noticed you've got this or that, and just ask a question or two, because we just need to be prepared to make connections with each other. And even if it's hard sometimes, we just have to do it. And that can help us through the holidays, because for some people it's really, really difficult to spend time alone. We all a lot of us probably have far too much food at Christmas. Well, take it to someone. Say, do you know someone who could use this? Or even if it's food for their dog, or if they've got a dog, it's a good way to make a connection.
I'm very much a non-Christmas person. And that's been the way that my husband and I used to treat the holidays in the past. However, it's very different doing that with a partner as to doing it when you're alone. We talk about in our community the concept of our chosen family. If we as individuals have chosen family, that is the time to start to lean on them for support if you are having difficulties getting through this holiday period. I also want to say, try not to get sucked in to the commercialism and the hype around Christmas. To be honest, Christmas is only one day of the year. And if we're going to be gracious and welcoming and accommodating of people on one day, what hope is there for the rest of the year? For those people who are alone, reach out to any community events that may be happening for people who are isolated, not connected. If you're in Melbourne, there's a great event on Christmas morning called the Orphans Breakfast, which is a free community event for LGBTQIA plus people run in Melbourne. I haven't got the links to it, sorry, but if you're in Melbourne and looking for something, look it up or try to find other things around that. And as Julia said, if all else fails, pretend to be doing some gardening out front and say hello to people as they pass is another really good way of making connections within your local community.
Thanks, Gary and Julia. Ketty, did you have anything to add to that particular question?
No, I think Gary and Julia came up with some great ideas.
Definitely. We've got another question from Liz, and it's more of I guess, a conceptual question or a practice question. She says there are already many specialized groups already formed, but not always easy to get into. Would you suggest trying to broaden them or some other strategy? It's kind of a big question, and I think it's more around people that are running the programs. Yeah. Any ideas where we can come to that?
Look, I'll try to answer this in the framework of Bent Twigs. Bent Twigs is an open LGBTQIA+ group. However, the majority of members of Bent Twigs are older gay males. We do have one intersex person, we do have one non-binary person who are regulars. We have had other members of our community turn up, and I feel this is one of the weaknesses of Bent Twigs, is because we are so gay male orientated, it can and does put other people off. And that's sad. It's not meant to be. People always say they felt welcomed, but we just weren't their tribe. We weren't what they were looking for. It's important that in Melbourne, a lot of councils are getting around and actually setting up these support groups. It's important to be able to make connections between these groups so that if someone comes to our group and say, enjoyed the day but not what I'm looking for, we have the resources to be able to turn around to that person and say, what are you looking for? Okay, can I recommend you to this group? So that is moving forward. And if we don't have those connections within the community groups, it's the same as the saying, you don't have connections as an individual.
It's a really good point, Gary. And I think it's good to realize that, not everybody can be everything to everyone. So I think the referral pathways are really important, and just alternative groups that if you're aware of them, you can share those with others. That's a really good point.
May I comment?
Of course, James.
For my experience with the choir, at every event, we let it be known, and there's always quite a few people present, we let it be known that we are open to people coming, that we have some free rehearsals where people don't have to pay a membership to see if they like it. We say where we are rehearsing and say, come on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock and check us out. And if we're singing in a public place, as we do, sometimes we do the same, and we often mingle with people. People come up to chat to us when we have an event and we have a raffle, people buy tickets, and someone say, oh, I think my daughter would enjoy this coming here, or my friend, or whatever. Give them information and let it be known whether that they are welcome. And I think that's along the lines of what Gary says, but we are a very mixed group. So when they see us, there's people in wheelchairs, there's people who need to sit, there's people who have a stick to walk, there's people who need some support, and it's just really very inclusive, helpful group of people. And we have fun, and that resonates with people. If we have some fun, we're not the most serious singers, we just generally often have a lot of fun as well.
Thanks, Julia. We've got time for maybe one or two more questions. I'm going to go to a little bit of a different question this time from Kathy, who says, do any folk have ideas on the issue of the visibility for folk in the LGBTIQ plus communities. I feel that more visibility will assist in the general community understanding and acceptance. Any thoughts on that one?
Kathy, this is my soapbox. As I said, visibility is really, really important. People ask me how I survived the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, whatever. I can keep going now that I'm getting older. And for me, the only reason I survived is because I was visible. I didn't hide myself. I didn't run away from things. I was authentically me at all times. Now, I realise that is not a very easy thing to do. But the more you are visible, the more you get seen as a person rather than, oh, that's the little gay boy over there. Without visibility, you don't get acceptance. And without acceptance, we may as well go back to the 60s and 70s.
I totally agree with Gary on that one. You have prepared.
Yep. Being out, not even being out, but just being visible as the person you are creates opportunities, not only for yourself, but creates opportunities for people that you may never, ever meet. I remember as a young gay male growing up in Sydney, western suburbs, I noticed an obvious gay man in the shopping centre. And I sort of looked within myself at that time and said, oh, I'm not the only one. Now, I'd never met that person, never saw him before in my life. But the fact that he was visible was a mirror back to me saying, you're not alone. Move forward, move strong. So being visible, if we're not visible, we don't get the services we need. We don't get our needs met. And unfortunately, as we get older, too many people from the older generations become less visible than they were in the past. And I know there's health issues that go into that. There's all of a sudden living alone, or there's not being close to gay communities. But we still have to be visible. We still need to be counted. We still need to stand up. And can I just push another little barrow, sorry? In being visible, it is really important next year that when the census comes out, that we all do answer those mandatory sexual identity questions. Because if we don't put any answers down, if we leave them blank, we don't appear in official records, we don't appear in the ABS data. And where do our services come from? Where does the funding come from? That data. It's not only being visible in the community, it's being visible when we're asked to stand up and be counted as well. So please, please fill in those forms. Answer those questions.
I would just say one last thing. Be out, be loud, be proud.
Thanks so much, Carrie and Julia. Love those answers and love the advocacy, definitely. I think we have time for one more question, which is pretty perfect because I think we have one more question in the chat. From Joe, says that both Ketty and Gary have mentioned housing projects. Trans folk particularly have problems accessing affordable housing. Do any of you have comments about how this might be addressed or is being addressed?
Oh, if only we had the magic potion pill to fix this, it would be great. Look, I can only talk from the basis of Victoria as far as that goes. And I would like to say that anybody, any older person from our community, regardless of what letter they associate with, if they're having problems finding permanent tenure and affordable, safe housing, being at risk of homelessness, they contact HARG here in Melbourne. HARG is a referral organisation that will take you step by step through the process of finding safe, secure, affordable housing. HARG is rainbow ticked. HARG is non-discriminatory. It's important to note that even though, yes, I do understand the difficulties that our trans community have, but just in general, older people from our community, when we did one of our housing surveys, 46% of them actually acknowledged the fact that they were homeless or at risk of homelessness at least once in their lifetime. 46%. If that was a heteronormative figure, people would be screaming. At the time of taking the survey, 16% were actually homeless or at risk of being homeless at that time. Also from that figure, older LGBTQIA+ people were 16% more likely to live alone than the heteronormative community. Now, they're horrendous figures. And in lots of times, in lots of places, our community has been ignored as far as our housing needs go. To get social housing here in Melbourne and Victoria, you need to be on the housing register list, which is great. However, there's no checkbox for sexual identity so that projects who are looking for LGBTQIA+ residents can actually cherry pick people who are suitable. There's no real projects down here that actually have space. It's really difficult. Find an advocate or find an organisation or advocate for you and go with them and trust is the best I can say at the moment.
Thanks, Gary. We're going to have to wrap it up, everyone. Thanks again for your insights, and thanks to Ketty, Gary, and Julia for sharing your insights as well, and the importance around social connectedness. There's a few more links in the chat. Thanks to Joe for providing a few things. So we'll keep those up for the next minute while we close out. I'm just going to share one more slide because we've got a slide with some information on it. Just one second here. And we'd also really appreciate it if you would take a survey about today's webinar, if you'd like to provide some feedback or insights about the webinar. So I will put that in the chat here in a second when I can get to the chat, if I can get that probably from my slide maybe. If you're able to take the survey, it would be really helpful just so that we can plan for next year going forward. And again, I want to have a special shout out to Joe for recommending that we put MindOut and the Silver Pride Advocacy Network together to bring this webinar to you. And again, here are some support numbers. One is Q Life, the other one is Charlie, which is a suicide prevention hub that you can access. Both free, some online, some on the phone. So again, thanks to everybody for sharing today, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Have a good day.